I'm Wendy Yellen, and this is the briefer version of the history of Wendy Yellen and why I do the eidetic imagery work that I do, and a little bit about how it personally helped me, supported me, changed me, no, despite the fact that I had been in all kinds of therapies and transformational processes since college. Okay. All right. So I was born in the Northeast and felt always felt a little on the outside, which actually suited me just fine. I'm a very private person. My mom used to try to make me go, well, she did make me go outside and play with other people, when really what I wanted to do was stay home and read books, watch TV, and dig a hole to China in the fields next door where I loved to go until they plowed it up for suburbia. So I I was a thoughtful kid and asked a lot of questions, drove my parents crazy with that. And starting from pretty young, I was very interested in change. What is what would make my family happier? What would make me happier? Um, I used to feel like just I don't know that I was really sad so much as just felt different, and again, pretty comfortable with that difference. But still, I didn't feel like other people and didn't feel like the things I wanted were similar to them until I got more towards college. When I first started in clinical social work school at Smith College for School for Social Work, I was there because I was super interested by this point in what real change is. I mean, I'd been in regular therapy, hadn't really worked. I wasn't with a good match. The man I was with who would sit behind his desk was not the right match for me, especially at 9 o'clock on a Saturday morning while I was in college. Can you imagine? But anyway, um, so I actually did my thesis, my dissertation on what creates real change because I wasn't interested in understanding things better. That's nice. But I could tell that with my mind, I could talk circles around myself. And that didn't make me feel better. It just maybe helped me understand, but it was all intellectual. So I explored not just the psychodynamic psychotherapy that I was learning at Smith, but I was really interested in Ericksonian hypnotherapy and short term therapy, family therapy, brief therapy. Uh, I did some study of emotional release body work, even of Reiki, which is energy healing. I studied many, many, many different processes because I wanted to get not just this intellectual process, but I wanted it to be in my whole body. I wanted to feel different. And I, of course, would experience every one of those therapies I would undertake for myself as a client, of course. And each one helped me some, but it still felt, even with the emotional release body work, so it was in my mind, it was in my body, but I still one day looked at myself in the mirror and I was like, something's off here. I should look more alive at the tender age of 30 something. So, in my explorations of what could really help me, what could take me from just understanding to real change, and also as I began to be in relationship with my husband of about 40 years, I started realizing how much difficulty I was bringing to the relationship. It wasn't all my fault. I'm not saying that, but I could see where my part of it. And as the more I began to understand my own assumptions about how he was supposed to be and how I thought I was right and how unhappy that made both of us and how I kept doing those same patterns. I really wanted to change that, but I had not a clue how to do that. And also, I had real easy, instant success with my first private practice business of psychotherapy. I mean, the red carpet laid out for me, the way people helped me, the way my practice filled, it was really incredible. But I closed my practice completely because even though it was full and people were referring, in fact, I was 100% referral, it didn't feel like enough. I was successful, very successful, way more than my own father had ever been. But if that was the only kind of change that I could actually help people to get and they were satisfied, I wasn't going to do it anymore. So I dropped all my certifications, all the therapies I did. I refused to be a therapist of any kind until I met the work that that I'm doing now, Eidetic imagery. And when I rediscovered it 20 years after I had first heard about it, it hit home so strongly about what was really going on inside of me. And I could viscerally feel the ways that I was stopping myself from being happier, from having what I wanted, from being able to be a more loving partner with my husband and to stop destroying him, which is what I was doing inside without wanting to, of course. I could see the ways that I was blocking myself in my business and in my new growth as a business as I started using Eidetics as the only tool. Eidetics helped me to see and experience literally the way that I was keeping my business small. That was so intense for me. And it was decades of patterns and decades of following deep filters that were inside of me about how my parents did things. It wasn't about my parents because now all these things were in me. And we'll go into that in other videos and other ways that I am teaching you through these resources here. So I was super the first time I met Dr. Asen, who's the father of Eidetic imagery, I was so in my head that I literally could barely understand the actual words he was saying. Now, yes, he spoke with somewhat of an accent, but I'd lived all over the world and I understood accents and other languages. So the fact that I couldn't understand him, I could just hear my brain was going, and everybody else was had known him for a while and done this work for a while, and they were doing the images, and I just thought that was so weird. So I just let it go, even though my best colleague, who I respected so much, had introduced me to this work, and I knew she was smart and she thought she was really onto something with Eidetics. It just wasn't enough. So 20 years later, when I rediscovered it, I was kind of skeptical and definitely skeptical, but it came to me in such a way that I just had to at least pursue it. So the head of the Eidetic Training Institute, International Institute, who knew me, called me up and said, "Listen, Wendy." So I was in Houston at the time. She said, "If you will, Santa Fe? Santa Fe, sorry, in Santa Fe and Taos. So if you will get on a plane and come to New York, I will, and get from the airport to my house, I will drive you to this weekend training that's an introduction. I'll feed you and I'll put you up in my house. So at that point, I was into how easy can I stand it? And this sounded like pretty darn easy. So I went thinking it'll probably be interesting. And there was Dr. Asen teaching and working with images with us. And this time I could understand him. My mind wasn't going so crazy. I'd actually done enough work that I could settle down a little bit more. And we did some images, some of which are available to you on my site. And will be coming. And I thought, whoa, this is showing me what's inside me. This is why I am feeling so stuck and not alive. And so I jumped into the training. It was a 3-year training. I had to fly to the New York area, I think 3 or 4 times, I think, a year. Plus I would go to do private day-long or weekend even intensives with Dr. Asen personally for my own work. And I would be also getting supervision. I mean, it was really a very, very, very full training. And it was so full, actually, and so intense that no one except me actually got their certificate from that 3-year training. And even with the training, I still had to work with the way I was stopping myself, interfering with actually receiving what I most wanted. If you get nothing else from this, I hope you'll give that some thought. You may not know at the moment. Maybe you'll have some inklings, though, like whether or not you can perceive at least a little bit or a hint of ways that you're stopping what you most want. When you really get it, it's a life change. It was a life changer for me. I could literally feel how I refused to let myself feel good. In an exact moment, I was fighting it. So extraordinary to watch yourself as a human being do that. But of course, just that isn't enough. If that was all that I would get, it would have been that I would have been able to receive. That would have been very valuable. But I was looking for change, as I imagine you are, or why would you be here? And so as I, with continued watching of my own personal eidetic images and feeling and allowing this part of my consciousness to open up some of those tightly closed, rigid places in me, I began simply to feel better. And it was starting to come from inside me naturally. It was like, whoa, who just said that? Or, oh, who just did that without any hardly seemingly any effort? That's the thing that my clients say the most often is they feel like it's interesting. Many different clients have used the word, they feel like their brain is getting rewired, and in a lot of ways from a neurological point of view, or from your neural pathways, looking at your neural pathways, that is what's happening. You're not creating new pathways, but you're finding the old ones that are covered over with history. But that's for a different discussion. And so what did I find? I found that I was more able to be loved and to love, including myself, which before I absolutely refused to do, and also started moving out of my way with my business. What I will be doing in this vlog, but in lots of other places too, is taking you through many different tastes of what you can experience in an eidetic image, but much more importantly, in your life, inside yourself. So we'll be talking much more about all of that. In the meantime, if you're going to follow along with some of my teaching, I recommend you take a nice journal, a journal that you like, and start out with an entry about your future, like what you're really wanting that's not there now. And if you do discover some of the ways that you're stopping yourself from having that, make notes about that. We're going to go much, much deeper in lots of ways, but at this point, what I wanted to do is tell you a little bit about me and about my journey, and hopefully to give you some hope about where we can go, all of us as human beings. I will tell you that I was so resistant to myself that at one point, Dr. Asen basically was going to fire me because I was more, in a deeper way, I seemed to be more interested in holding on than in moving forward. And I did not want to lose him at all. And so it was really that kept me going and allowed me to just settle in a little bit more to allowing that future to come to me instead of barricading it, which is what I was doing. Maybe you recognize some of this. All right. It was nice meeting you, and I'll see you in our next connection.